Moments after the Nexu released the full fury of her primary energy weapons, the dome above the mysterious target had become a flame-scarred concavity. The groundquake fault that should have destroyed Clandis instead sent a minor tremor throughout the Kibo Plateau. There were no fatalities and few injuries, although the shock was measured as far south as Barrens. In Clandis, a few walls cracked and alarms sounded citywide. To the north, toward Chikatlik, there was another more immediate effect. The underground lake's surface reflected flashes of red and yellow lightning as the energy field confining Obi-Wan and Kit Fisto lessened for an instant. Obi-Wan felt pain and fire as he lunged through, his lightsaber absorbing enough of the energy to keep the shield from frying him. It snapped back on swiftly enough to singe Kit's left heel as the Nautolan jumped free. The protocol droid barked an order, and all of Ventress's asp laid their weapons down. "Surely they're not surrendering," Kit said. Ventress laughed. "By no means. I told them they don't stand a chance against you with blasters." And now," she said, "defend yourselves, Jedi." The young Jating thugs moved in. Obi-Wan groaned. He couldn't simply cut them down. "I know what you're thinking," Ventress grinned. "You wish you could talk to them. A pity you don't speak Jating." "Obi-Wan?" Kit asked. "Well, we can't just slaughter them. We must do this without our lightsabers." Kit seemed to struggle with the idea, and then finally sighed. "A bit of exercise, then," he said, and reluctantly extinguished his blade. Ventress's foolish young Jating allies attacked from every angle. Obi-Wan leaned away from the swipe of a durasteel crowbar, the edge of his foot cracking the Jating's knee as he did. A second youth jumped on him from behind. Obi-Wan gripped a primary right hand and a secondary left hand and torqued. The Jating corkscrewed through the air and shattered a pile of boxes. Kit Fisto snarled, surrendering to the pull of Form 1's unarmed techniques. Heads cracked, limbs twisted against their joints, and Jating flipped howling into the lake. Ventress stood back, her eyes watching, and Obi-Wan knew she was waiting, learning about her opponents. The cavern was awash with whirling bodies. Obi-Wan's opponents had enthusiasm, but little technique. The Force blossomed within him, and time perception distended, slowing reality to a crawl. He had all the time he needed to slide out of the way of the blows, retaliating with perfect economy. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Kit had made his way almost to Ventress. His companion was a living martial hurricane, his body moving in 2 and 3 directions at once, joints flexing, unlimited by human vertebral restraints. Obi-Wan himself could only attack and attack, taking the battle to them, creating his own timing and distancing, smashing his way toward Ventress. Obi-Wan missed the moment, but Kit finally won his way through to Ventress. She raised her hand, and the Jating who had harried the Nautolan turned to attack Obi-Wan, leaving her to face Kit alone. Now, finally, Kit drew his lightsaber. Ventress drew a pair of blazing red blades. She inclined her head, breathing more quickly, lips curling into a smile. "Finally," she said. "Your pleasure," Kit hissed, and went at her. He was like fire, Ventress like smoke. The dance had substance, but not form, a blur of light that seemed impossibly fast, unbelievably deadly. Obi-Wan would have given his right hand to join, or even to watch such a display. But he had his own worries, his own battle to fight. He struggled with the urge to simply draw his lightsaber and slaughter the Jating. His enemies came on and on, struck quickly but clumsily, got in each other's way. Obi-Wan was direct in attack and as elusive as a breeze. He'd missed the engagement, but suddenly, Kit was down. Obi-Wan heard the scream, but couldn't see the wound's severity. Kit rolled as Ventress came at him, splashing down into the lake. The Jedi tore his way through the Jiting, breaking arms and legs as he went, then drew his lightsaber. He covered the distance between them with a single somersaulting leap. Asajj Ventress was extraordinarily quick, but her very ferocity gave Obi-Wan a hairline opening, a moment when he had the better leverage. He blocked Ventress's lightsabers and managed to pin her blades down. Ventress was surprised, but in the next moment disengaged her right-hand blade and slashed at his neck, attempting to behead him. There was no time for conscious thought, no time for anything but response, as Obi-Wan ducked and spun back. Ventress drew his attention to the left and leapt into the air in a spinning kick that slammed Obi-Wan down into the dock. The first touch of desperation wormed its way through his emotional shields. Obi-Wan bared his teeth. As Master Yoda had often said these days,
"The dark side has clouded the galaxy. Difficult to see the future is."
Floating below the dock, Kit Fisto could still hardly move. He had barely evaded death from a lightsaber wound to the head, and his senses still were far away. But some deep instinct had warned him that his compatriot Obi-Wan was in trouble, fighting to protect both their lives. He woke up enough to reach for his lightsaber. He triggered it, and sliced the piling supporting the dock. Ventress howled in surprise as she and Obi-Wan tumbled into the water. Kit wanted desperately to help, but had exhausted his supply of strength. Surrendering to his wounds, he lost consciousness. Obi-Wan had but a moment to snatch his rebreather and jam it into his mouth, and in the next instant realized that Ventress couldn't. She clutched a lightsaber in each of her lethal hands. He went at her savagely, never giving her a moment to sheathe one lightsaber, to slip in her own rebreather. Nearing panic, Ventress dropped one of her lightsabers and lunged at Obi-Wan, surprising him. She flipped back away, taking that moment to don her own rebreather. Then, eyes burning with hatred, she came at him. The two circled each other like some kind of aquatic predators, but both were out of their elements. The question was, which would adapt most swiftly? The water was murky, and he realized that he was wrong to trust his eyes. Stop. Defocus. Feel the water pressure as she makes her moves. Trust the Force. Obi-Wan felt the water surge at him, and he let that surge carry him in its natural arc. His lightsaber flashed in, and for the first time, he cut her. The wound was low in the ribs on the right side, and her eyes widened in pain and sudden fear. Instead of moving back, Obi-Wan moved in. She butted him in the mouth, ripping out his rebreather. But the movement stunned her, and he tore hers out in the same instant. So, there they were, the two of them, beneath the water. The first to bolt for the surface would be exposed and vulnerable. The first one to break loses. She wielded her single remaining blade, eyes wide and staring. Then something broke inside Ventress. She shrieked a mouthful of bubbles and triggered something at her belt. The water around her churned into an expanding onyx cloud, as if she had emptied an ink sac into it. And in a flurry of bubbles and blackness, Asajj Ventress was gone.